Good morning. My name is Sven Ringling. I am SAP HXM Solution Advisor at Orbis People in Germany. And as you will have guessed, SAP HXM mornings are back. And today we are looking at SuccessFactors performance and goals management. In this session, I'm going to explain the basic, what are the components, how does it integrate with the rest of the solution. And then there will be a follow-up session with my colleague Janine Tse. But let's start with the basics. So what is SuccessFactors performance and goals? Well, we start, not surprisingly, with the performance form. So this is the core of the whole solution. A typical form, as you might expect it, which includes most notably all the competencies that are to be assessed. And this form is basically driven through the process along the so-called route map. You could also call it the workflow. So, and this route map knows who's going to be doing what with the form at which point. So it might have a first step with a self-assessment by the employee, and then you might have the line manager assessment. Then you might have both of them sitting together and discussing, and then you might have HR looking into it, and then eventually you might have both the employee and then the line manager to have a signature step to complete the form. This is up to your organization to configure as needed. And in our next session, we will also look into how to make this whole thing less rigid, more dynamic. But that's just like the backbone of the whole thing, where this performance form is rooted through the organization. Then, apart from the competency assessment, we also have goals. Goal plan is kind of an object in its own right within SAP SuccessFactors, and it has most notably the so-called development goals, and let's say all the other goals. We will see why the development goals, why they have a special role within the system. The goal feature comes with interesting elements like the goal library, so that you can offer your line manager a big choice of goals to choose from. So you have the various departments more aligned with each other. You can also import goals from a different system, say from your CRM system, where you plan sales numbers for your sales force. You can have cascading goals that go down from the top of the organization through departments to the individuals. You can have team goals where you have joint responsibility for a particular goal. The competency assessment and the goal plan together, they eventually create the results. So that might just be a number between 0 and 5 as the overall rating of that form for the employee in that particular year. So that's the basics as you are probably used to. It comes to other tools, like we have the calibration tool or 9-box matrix. You're probably familiar with that. That helps line managers or also upper level managers to compare employees, see how they stand against each other. And there's also the team rater feature to help you with that. And my personal favorite is the continuous performance feature. I won't talk about this too much now because as this red asterisk indicates, this will be part of our next session with Janine. But basically, this is about making the whole process more interactive to make sure that throughout the year there's a dialogue between line manager and employee. And then in the end, we have a completely separate feature, if we want so, which is the 360 feedback. So this is not necessarily integrated in this performance form, in this process, but that allows you to deal with your typical 360 or 180 feedback, where not just line manager, but peers, subordinates, customers, and so on can provide feedback for an individual. So now, how does all this connect with the rest of the SuccessFactors suite. Obviously, if you do use Employee Central as your core HR system, then all the personal data, the organizational data will flow from EC through the SuccessFactors platform into the performance solution. But also the results, the competency assessment, in particular skills assessment, that will be visible in your profile when you look into Employee Central. That also shows all the talent information, including competency skills assessment. Then when we look at the competency assessment, that does come, or the competencies in there come from the Center of Capabilities, which has replaced the job profile builder about a year ago. So this competency framework feeds into the performance management module. And so you can also use it to make sure that the competencies that are to be assessed automatically flow from your framework into the performance review form of each individual. Then when we talk about the goal plan, I said development goals have a particular role to play. So the development goals, they can also be used as a development plan in here and be monitored in all your development planning process. And development goals can but don't have to include courses that sit in the SuccessFactors learning. Another integration, if you talk about the results, so if the process is completed and you have your goal assessment, you have your competency assessment, then those results can flow into the compensation module. And that's important to know. That's a different module. So here you have results in terms of a rating scale, but no money. There's no euro values in here, no pound values either. So it all goes into the compensation and variable pay module. And that's where you can take these ratings and use all the formulas in the world you want to calculate a compensation value in here. There's also another nice integration. If you look at the calibration, we can also use calibration to compare the performance result with the compensation. So you have on one axis, you have the performance, on the other axis, you have the compensation value, and then you can see basically, is our compensation fair compared with the individual's performance. Then obviously, all the data we have here flows into the people analytics solution. And we will also deal with that a little bit in the next session, but even more so in our people analytics webinar next week on the 24th of March. And finally, talking about integration, we also have Qualtrics. How does Qualtrics play into this? You can also use Qualtrics to integrate it into your SuccessFactors UI at the end of the process. When you have the signature step, you can ask employees after signing the performance form for some feedback about the whole process, and then that immediately brings up the feedback form in Qualtrics, and then you get your feedback data in Qualtrics that can be reported on in that solution. So that's basically, in a nutshell, the whole performance and goals tool. But that's it. As I said, watch out for the next session with Janine, where we talk all about how to make this process more flexible, dynamic, and a real leadership tool. There will also be on the 22nd of March in German a webinar about the whole performance and goal process. So please watch out for this and switch on probably on Monday for the next session of HXM Mornings. Thank you very much and have a great experience.